and I hope everybody is comfortable with English. If anybody has got any problem, you can type.
It's fine, sir.
It's fine. I see a lot of South Indian names, so I feel that as a common lingua franca, I can continue it in English. In case there are any hindrances due to language, you can always pause me in the middle, and I will try to explain the same thing either in Hindi or Tamil or Telugu or Kannada, whatever language you are comfortable with. I just need a few more minutes to open my slide, assuming that my audio is coming through well. So the whole this workshop is about orienting NEP, orienting you all towards the, or more of a sensitizing all of you towards. May I request Professor Srinivasachari to kindly mute the mic.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Can you please? No problem. You're welcome. Thanks a lot. So this whole workshop is for sensitizing stakeholders of higher education like you and me towards this new topic. Although on paper it appears new, the content is very much well acquainted to all of us. But for the very first time, we are all seeing it as a separate subject, quote unquote subject. So, which is called the Indian knowledge system. The content of it, yeah, Vijay Lakshmi, madam, you have any question? I saw a hand being raised. Okay, I think it was by mistake, not a problem. So this is a sensitizing workshop towards this new subject that was introduced in NEP 2020 and reinforced by the National Curriculum Framework. Now you may know that this NEP is catering more towards the school education, but you may wonder why is it that stakeholders of higher education are being sensitized. The reason is, this is not a one-time affair, because say within this year, if it is being introduced, as we are speaking, I think for the last 2 years or so, every college is conducting a workshop, every college is conducting a conference, which is centered around IKS, and there are UGC guidelines for even forming courses both at UG and PG level. So under such a scenario where you will be dealing with students who will be coming from school, so they are already acquainted with certain topics of IKS, but you should, the stakeholders of higher education should be a step ahead in enthusing them further in this topic called IKS. So for which right now the content is commonly dealt with across UG and PG, and a diluted version of it, or the what we call simpler version of it, is what is being used in the school. So this is the prelude to this workshop, where the contents, at the outset I must also say that there are no ready-made content for IKS. There is a book co-authored by 3 people, Professor Mahadevan, Vinayak Rajat Bhatt, and one more person, which was the first attempt by AICTE to formalize in the form of a textbook. But there are other research articles and edited volumes that bear familiar to only some niche group of scholars. Right now, there is an abject paucity of ready-made textbook or ready-made reading material for the subject called IKS. So in that sense, IKS is slightly special because we do not have a ready-made textbook which we can go through. Suppose we are assigned a particular course in IKS to be taught. We cannot have the luxury of just turning few pages and then going for the lecture. And IKS is not a separate subject per se. The whole idea behind introducing IKS is to see that if you are a professor of mathematics, how is it that I can introduce in my course of mathematics elements of mathematics that were developed in the ancient and medieval India? A glimpse of it, I'll be covering it in my talk. Similarly, if you are a professor of history or economics, or name any subject for that matter, how is it that you can link the existing material that you teach with inputs that may come from workshops like this, which talk about or which dwell exclusively into the contribution made by scholars from the ancient and medieval India. Okay, so that is the whole motivation for such a workshop, which I would like to make it clear in the beginning so that our expectations are not misplaced. I would like to share my screen now and get away the topic right away. I mean, I would appreciate if you can jot down your question and ask to me later, because while I am presenting, I will not have access to the chat window. Generally, if there is a moderator, that moderator would be coordinating the chat window and my presentation. But since I will not be able to access the chat window while I am showing my PowerPoint slides in a presentation mode, I would request that you jot down. I think I have slide numbers given in my slides. So you can jot down the slide number and your question, and I will definitely give you enough time to discuss. Unfortunately, the slide numbers are not visible. So you can jot down your questions and I can address them towards the end of whatever I had to share. I hope my screen is visible. If any one of you can unmute and say.
Sir.
Yes, sir, now visible.
Okay, good. So there are two parts of this presentation that I'm going to make, 1 hour of each. So in the first 1 hour, with this introduction, I'll be slightly giving you more elaborate version of the why part of IKS and what constitutes IKS, particularly what does not constitute IKS. And in the second part, I will be giving you some very brief examples. Since I'm a student of science, particularly chemistry, my examples will be centered around maths and science, particularly in science, in chemistry and metallurgy. And if time permits, we'll have some concluding remarks. Otherwise, I will skip the concluding remarks and open it up for discussion, depending upon your patience and the available time that we may have. Now, India has been a center of attraction from a very long time. All of us know that. And in the last 200 or 300 years, it has been an era of very serious engagement with India, where you had multiple colonial agents coming and occupying the country for various reasons. One second. Then you had academicians who were studying India, which is why the field of Indology came into existence. You had traders opening up their companies. That's how East India Company comes. And finally, when the East India Company goes out of control, you had the British colonial empire being established. So it is not for any particular reason that right from Dutch, Portuguese, as well French and British, it's not for a trivial reason that they had come and attacked India and they had their basement in India, because India was filled with riches. Despite previous 600 years of onslaught by the invaders from Middle East, invaders from extended areas of the Middle East. So despite all these, we had a group of academic scholars who had very high regards for what India was, what India appeared to them. One such academician is Sylvain Lévy. He's a French Indologist who had the following to say, which is in front of you, where I would like to draw the attention to the second line, where he says, she, referring to India, she has a right to reclaim in universal history the rank that ignorance has refused her for a long time, and to hold her place amongst the great nations, summarizing and symbolizing the spirit of humanity. Such was the aspiration, not by any political dispensation of the current contemporary times, nor their ancestors. Such was the aspiration expressed by a French Indologist. I'll skip this. There have been, just one passing comment here. If you look at the evolution of territorialism in the past 200 years, or what people commonly refer to as international geopolitics, you can see a clear pattern that gets emerged. Right after the Second World War, where the colonies were kind of getting the colonial empires were releasing the colonies one after the other. And that's where you had, after the Second World War, you had this United Nations getting formed, but slightly prior to that, you had this North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or what is commonly referred to as NATO, which symbolized military power. It was through military power that few bunch of countries were controlling the money flow, as well as flowing of the resources and money were controlled by a few countries, and those few countries' prowess was marked by the military might. But then people evolved. That's why in 1960s, in the later part of 1960s, you had the emergence of another world level organization called World Intellectual Property Organization, where this is a subtle form of another era or another wave of colonialization, because they realized, fine, it's not the physical slavery that is effective, rather it is the intellectual slavery or materialistic slavery. So I can as well sit in India and control the commerce and economics of a different country by patent rights. And this we have seen very clearly in our own lifetime in the recent past during COVID times, where the generic drugs, especially the drug that is commonly given for malaria, chloroquine, the generic form of it was in high demand, and India was one of the suppliers. The non-generic one is under patent. And today also, this Prime Minister's Jan Aushadhi Kendra, the reason that we are able to get medicines fourth or fifth of its price because it is a generic product not coming within the framework of international patent. Otherwise, the same paracetamol, which is or orthohydroxy para, I'm forgetting the chemical name for it. It's a form of a benzoic acid with a hydroxyl group. Now, if I'm able to synthesize that in the lab and not sell it under a particular brand like Disprin or Aspirin or whatever brand name, be it Zerodol, whatever, they are branded. So they are covered by some or the other patent. But if I sell it in a generic way, I'm out of that patent foundation whereby I can govern or I can regulate the cost suiting my economy. So people realize that we can colonize even through this kind of a route. That's why we had World Intellectual Property Organization. And what had happened to the fate of basmati rice and turmeric, everybody knows. I don't have to repeat it. The same thing is also connected. You had World Trade Organization, where you had product patent and process patent as a consequence of WIPO. Then people realized, okay, there are smarter, in developing nations, there are smarter brains which can come up with a generic form where if the product is patented, the process patent is not guaranteed. Right? So there comes another organization, World Trade Organization, which safeguards the interest of a particular nation where that invention has originated. Right? Another very good example is the heart valve. And Swati Tirunal Chitra Institute started by Raja Swati Tirunal in Trivandrum, I think, had done a groundbreaking work by inventing a very low-cost pacemaker. I think our former president, APJ Kalam, was also personally involved in that project. And this was a joint venture. And that's how the crux of the story is the colonization does not end with we getting political independence in 1947, particularly under the context of India. So there are different ways of colonization. At the core of it, knowledge is a base. 20 years back when I was growing up, information was the power, but now information is no longer the power. Now it is the knowledge. We have progressed to another era. Merely information, access to information is no use. How do we connect those information and create knowledge is what is powerful. And in this case, particularly if we are ignorant of what our knowledge base is, when I say our knowledge base, ancient Indian, medieval Indian knowledge base, I would say we will not fare well even in economics or even in trade. That is why even from utilitarian point of view, having a thorough ground with Indian knowledge systems is going to be even economically beneficial. I will skip this due to want of time. Just in this particular one line that I wish to draw your attention to, which I have quoted, V.K. Gupta, the then chairman of the group called TKDL, which is Traditional Knowledge Digital Library. What he says, the TKDL expert group estimated that annually some 2,000 patents relating to Indian medicinal systems were being erroneously granted by patent offices around the world. This was, mind you, almost a decade back, more than a decade back, where every year 2,000 patents about medicinal systems. You can clearly now calculate the amount of wealth that this could generate. But if we are not aware to even identify our own knowledge base, we are simply sitting on a gold mine without realizing that we are sitting on a gold mine. So that is why this NEP, it took cognizance of all these lacunae and it has put it in black and white. What our school children, our impressionable minds should know about Indian past, especially from the kind of knowledge that was developed in a civilization that has lasted for more than at least 6,000 years. It is not a joke. It is not just by accident that we have just been surviving for 6,000. We have been existing for 6,000 years. We have been thriving. We have been flourishing. That's how in the last 1,000 years, we have been attacked, we have been traded with, and that's how what I spoke a few minutes back. So there is something remarkable that we would have done in the past, remarkable that we would have acquired certain knowledge, we would have invented certain things which made us what we were in the past, right? Right now, there is no systematic organizational structure given to accessing that kind of a knowledge that was prevalent in the ancient and medieval India. And this is one such step towards that cause, to remove that ignorance and create such a knowledge space. There are various instances in NEP which talks about it. I will not bother about. For the very first time, NEP national level document talks about Takshashila, Nalanda, literary works of ancient India like Varnabhatta's Kadambari, 64 Kalas. So I would say this is a big paradigm shift that is begging the Indians who are involved with the education sector to sensitize themselves as well as prepare the impressionable mind for a better future. And not just that, it even looks for internationalization. Say, for instance, if our own kids are not aware, you can also think along with me, and I'm sure you will agree with me, that 2 generations back, 3 generations back, even if a particular child was illiterate in terms of English literacy, they were having the skill to identify and name at least 10 herbs which are commonly found. And today, I beg you to conduct a survey within your own family and extended family. How many kids who are of, say, 10, 11, 12 age are able to identify even a single herb and know its traditional name? So if we don't catch them young, it's not that by knowing merely the name they will be masters of it, but somewhere we need to start. So if we catch them young, perhaps if they grow with that kind of an information initially, they maybe, if they are attracted towards it, that can be converted into a knowledge, and thereby we can also become international. Internationally, we can get empowered. Clear example for that is the Nobel Prize to the Chinese lady for the discovery of RT medicine against a malaria drug. She was purely looking at only traditional Chinese medicine, and for 20 years she dedicated her life only for extracting RT medicine, and that's how, and she was awarded with the Nobel Prize, and rest is history. Can't we have something similar in the Indian context? There are enough potentials, but we have not been encouraged to pursue that path. Now, when we say Indian knowledge system or knowledge of India, I would like to categorically state it very clearly that it's not like fossilization of the ancient knowledge. What I mean by that is, when we visit a museum, we get a glimpse of what was the society, say 500 years back, or 1,000 years back, or 2,000 years back. This whole exercise of the workshop where you are sitting and I'm talking, it is squarely not intended to create an education museum where we enter and we get to just know what kind of knowledge was there in the past. That's not how I look at IKS. Otherwise, it will be simply a chapter in the history textbook, in the discipline of history. It's not for that purpose at all. It has various utility, and that merits a completely different lecture. I'll not get into it. But at least what it is not, I'm very clear that it is not converting the ancient knowledge into a fossil or into an academic museum. But then what is it that it can be used for? I'll come to that in a bit later. But before that, I wish to draw your attention to another milestone, or which you may call it as either a blocking stone or an ennobling stone. It can be looked upon, this is like a glass is half filled or half empty. It's about the language, because language is a primary means by which we approach a body of knowledge, right? And whether we like it or not, 80% of the Indian knowledge is either verbally or in a written form documented in a language called Sanskrit. This is not to say that other languages do not have any knowledge base. It is because other languages also derive their existence from Sanskrit. And depending upon the local flavor, yes, the knowledge is also documented verbally and orally in those local languages. Classical example, if you look at the Ayurveda, it's a pan-Indic medicinal system. But if you go to Himachal Pradesh, the kind of Ayurveda practiced will slightly differ from the Ayurveda that is practiced in the Northeast and Bengal side than in Gujarat. And you go to Kerala, it all takes up a different flavor. The governing body is the big core philosophy is the same, but the practice gets differed based on the flora that is available in different geography. And of course, the documentation also will be in different language. For instance, the Kerala Ayurveda, most of it is in Malayalam. If you go to Gujarat side, you find both Sanskrit and Gujarati being used. It's like so on and so forth. But the bottom line is, whether we like it or not, 80% of it is in Sanskrit. And I know that there has been a systematic decline in Sanskrit education, both learning and teaching, in the last 75 years or so. But I have a quote here before you by one of the very famous gentlemen whom we are all aware of. We are all familiar with him. But I would like you to guess who would have told this statement. He has the following to say, I quote, "I would personally like as many Indians as possible to know Sanskrit, which is the very basis of our culture. I see no difficulty about this. The more languages one knows, the more one knows one's own language. There is an element of force about this, so on and so forth." I invite you to unmute your mic one by one. Maybe I'll take 3 responses. Feel free to make a guess who would have said this about Sanskrit that I've read out the first line, the remaining is in front of you. Feel free to make a guess. Am I audible? Please don't type because I will not be able to access the chat window. I mean, this much time is enough even for typing it in Google and getting the answer. So I don't know.
So we cannot understand, sir, question. Where is the Sanskrit word?
I'm not Sanskrit word. I'm saying I'm quoting somebody here who has told about Sanskrit. I'm asking who said these words about Sanskrit.
Sir, I said this Narendra Modi.
Definitely no. But thank you for your guess. Anybody else would like to guess?
Einstein.
No, that's a good guess, but definitely no. He's talking about our culture, which means it has to be some Indian.
Swami Vivekanand.
That's also a very brilliant guess, but no. But I'm 100% sure everybody knows this gentleman.
Kumar Swami.
Dr.
I can hear Kumaraswamy, I can hear one more voice, but it is muffled.
Aryabhatta, sir.
Aryabhatta,
Dr.
definitely no.
Krishna.
Sarvapalli Radhakrishna is one good guess, but this quotation is not by Sarvapalli Radhakrishna.
Is this Tegar?
Not our Rabindranath Thakur, no. But you people are coming closer. It's around that period.
Rishi Arabindra?
No. Aurobindo, no. Okay. But anyway, I thank you all for your good guess. But I'm sure when I click the mouse next, you will all be surprised whose words are these.
Anand Kumar Swami.
No. Not Ananda Kumaraswamy, but that was also a good guess. This was by none other than Jawaharlal Nehru himself. In his discovery of India, when it comes to the chapter of Sanskrit, he has this to say. Okay? I'm sure this would have been a surprising thing for most of you. But at least when I first came across this, it was a big surprise to me. Okay? He says,
Yes.
if asked what is the greatest treasure which India possesses, what is her finest heritage, I would answer unhesitatingly it is the Sanskrit language. I mean, this man had this to say about Sanskrit. Despite that, the Sanskrit teaching learning has declined in the last 75 years. And that's the basic key with which we can unlock the treasure of ancient Indian or medieval Indian knowledge system. Okay? But this does not mean I am not a student of Sanskrit. I am a student of modern science. I have done my PhD in chemistry. So that doesn't stop me from collaborating with Sanskrit scholars or taking pains to at least pick up some of the basic language. After all, I'm not going to become, I'm not going to write a poetry or a novel in Sanskrit. Like how I picked up English to approach chemistry, similarly, one must be open-minded to at least pick up some basic Sanskrit or collaborate with scholars who are well-versed in this field to approach this body of knowledge. Otherwise, approaching them through translated works are going to be futile exercise. This out of experience, I'm telling you. I'll skip all these things because they are going to look. See, the utility part which I talked about, one of the slides few minutes back, I said what is not IKS, that IKS is not converting the past knowledge into a museum, academic museum. But in that case, immediately question will come, what is IKS in that case? So I will again give an answer in a circuitous way, not directly, by making you think about these two examples. One is Rani Ki Vav in Gujarat, and the other one, the Kallanai, or the Grand Anicut in across the Kaveri River, which separates Kollidam, in the confluence of Kollidam, or the point where Kaveri splits into Kaveri and Kollidam. This is built, Karikala Choran built, and it's dated, it's not disputed at all. It's 2000 years back it was built. Similarly, this Patan, where the Rani Ki Vav exists, this was also built almost 1000 years back. Okay. Now, the population in these geographies would definitely be far, far less, a fraction of what the population is currently in these geography. But despite that, the society back then anticipated problems that could come to the society 1000 years after them, 2000 years after them. And they were prepared to by not just identifying the futuristic problems, but they were up in arms with a solution, with a functional solution. And those of you who are from Tamil Nadu, I am sure you will know that this Karikala Choran's Kallanai is still functional after 2000 years. This Rani Ki Vav, some portion of it is still functional. Other portions have not functional, not because that there is a damage, but because of some other vested interest, people have stopped using it fully. Now, my question is not just to you, I'm including myself. That this is like a soliloquy where I'm questioning myself, that with all our modern knowledge, are we in a position to even predict what could be the problem that our society 500 years down the line is going to face? Leave alone 1000 and 2000. Today, are we, I mean, if you, after this workshop, you may go and think about it tonight. Can you come up with listing at least 4 or 5 problems that is going to wriggle your own neighborhood 500 years down the line, 1000 years down the line? Are we in a position to come up with solutions to those problems? Right? So this to me really amazes when I look at these examples. They are not just two. There are n number of other examples which are available to us, which are accessible to us. But these two are quite striking. So at least for this sake, that our ancestors could anticipate problems that could come 1000 years, and mind you, these problems did come. I mean, a month back, if you had read newspapers, everybody was talking about water scarcity in Bangalore. Right now, they have experienced rains sufficiently that the underwater water table has got charged up. But water crisis is, we are sitting on a time bomb. So that problem, what they anticipated, is realistic. And solutions are also, they had offered, is very much practical and usable. Right? Are we in a position to at least do that? I'm not saying no, but this is something that for we need to introspect, and at least for respecting the ancestors for their forethought, should we not dig deeper and get to know what they knew? Okay. Okay. So what I will do now, with that utility in mind, I see it is time is 5:52. We can take a break of 8 minutes. Either you can log off and go, or if you have any question till now, we can use it for interaction. And I will continue with my presentation from exactly 6 o'clock. So you're free to continue login, but you can have a break. And those of you who want to ask some question, you can now type them in chat box. We'll resume at 6 p.m. Okay, there's a very brilliant question by Professor Saurabh Roy, that was there any policy taken by Government of India, led by our first Prime Minister, to promote Sanskrit language? It's a very interesting question because in 1955 or so, or in the next decade of our independence, there was a Sanskrit Commission being formed. This was called the Sanskrit, it was called Sanskrit Commission. It had several members, but I only remember the name of the person who was leading this commission. That was Dr. Suniti Kumar Chatterjee, one of the very brilliant linguists that our country had produced in the last century. The committee was tasked with looking at the plight of the Sanskrit education in the country and recommend measures to improve it. And to my limited knowledge, I'm not claiming that I'm not a student of Sanskrit, so I cannot claim it with very much confidence. But I've gone through the Sanskrit Commission report. To this day, I mean, not even 20 or 30% of the Commission's report is executed, even to this day. They had some very brilliant recommendations, but for some reasons or the other, it has not been fully executed. And if you are interested in a deeper answer, then you should start from 1870s, after the famous Macaulay's pronouncement of his speech in the Parliament of Britain. By then he had not come to India. Okay, So he had only got information from his officers posted in India. You have to get into that kind of a history where what is called the imperial postings and what is called the oriental postings, and where did Sanskrit feature in all these things, what were the salaries paid, blah, blah, blah. It's a long history. So the Sanskrit Commission does address these points. It looks at how did we come to such a sorry state of affairs. But my observation, as I told you, had the Commission's report recommendations, even if at least 60%, 80% was executed, we would have been in a far better situation. But sadly, we are not. Okay. I hope that answers your question. I will get going with what I have to say. If you're interested, you can talk to me separately later, Professor Saurabh Roy, and we can discuss on this. So this is where we left before we broke. Now imagine another question. Imagine without technical know-how, without engineering skills, could they have ever built such mega structures with such fine precision as well as aesthetics? Right? So, there have been reports about this Grand Anaikut, that when British officers in the 19th century felt that the height of the dam is too small, it has to be built slightly higher, they tinkered with it, least realizing the dynamics of the river, which changes every 5 years. So one officer comes, feels that it needs to be tinkered, he tinkers with it. Another officer comes after some years, he feels that the tinkering is superfluous, it is not relevant, he removes that tinkering. So you see here, the intelligentsia of the last 200 years is not even in a position to gauge the intelligentsia of 2000 years. What mastermind or what master observers they would have been to study very precisely the dynamics of the Kaveri River for several decades and then come up with this kind of a dam plan. So the question that the rhetoric that I'm trying to put forth is, without technical knowledge, particularly say in math or in construction or knowing about materials, knowing geometry, symmetry, would they have ever achieved what they achieved, which is right in front of us for our own personal witness? Needlessly, no. Obviously, no. Which means they really possessed that amount of knowledge, skill, know-how, engineering ability, and master calculators, without which they would not have done these kind of marvels. So in the remaining 80 minutes or so, what I have at my disposal, I'd like to very briefly introduce about the kind of math. It's a whole elaborate subject on it is available in NPTEL in the course of 40 lectures, but I am trying to squeeze it in just few minutes, 25 minutes or 30 minutes or so, by just introducing to you some glimpses of the Indian math first, to begin with. And particularly, how our ancient Indians conceived numbers. So this, I am told, there are basically 3 ways in which ancient Indians conceived numbers. They are called Bhuta Sankhya, Katapayadi Sankhya, and Aryabhatiya Sankhya. And I'm told that my previous generation, whether they belonged to, definitely in Bengal, yes, that my previous generation, which means the generation which went to school, say 40 years back, or say even, no, sorry, not 40 years back, 60 years back, when they were in school, they did learn this, but somehow down the line, this has got alienated. And this is also true in Tamil Nadu, in a state so very apparently distinct from Sanskrit. What was prevalent? This concept of Bhuta Sankhya system. What is Bhuta Sankhya? You use words for representing numbers. And you don't use words in an arbitrary or a haphazard manner, but with some intrinsic logic as well as intrinsic cultural understanding about it. For instance, for representing the number 0, any word that represented sky or its paryaya or its synonymous words were used. Besides, the kha is also akasha, it's a paryayavachi shabda for akasha, which so is ambara. So a purna is a different word. They all represent the number 0. Similarly, there's only one moon. So all the synonymous words with moon, they were used for representing the number 1. Similarly, we have 2 eyes, all of us, except for Shiva, who has a 3rd eye, but that's an exception. So our human experience is that we have 2 eyes, 2 hands, 2 ears, and there are 2 paksha, Shukla paksha and Krishna paksha. So all these words connote the number 2, so on and so forth. So here, why words for numbers? Because primarily knowledge was transmitted orally, and it is very easy to by heart if certain thing is composed in a poetic way. This has even trickled down to even modern education also. Like I remember when I was in school, when the resistor code, you had a color code for identifying or the resistance of a particular resistor. We had some phrases for that. B, Roy, so on and so forth. I don't recollect it now. Similarly, for memorizing the sequence of elements in a periodic table, there have been very creative ways by which people have composed songs on it, people have composed poetry on it. What I meant to say is if the things are in certain words, it is easier for us to memorize them. And let me tell you one thing in this, that the modern education system has demonized the whole process of memorization, which to my personal opinion and experience is completely detrimental for the entire knowledge acquisition process. Some amount of memory is essential for connecting information. For everything, we can't keep inventing logic. Feynman is completely dead against memorization, but that memory is of a different type of a memory. This memory, which the Indians were very much trained in, like remembering the tables, remembering fraction tables. It was not there in my generation, but my previous generation did learn tables corresponding to fractions, 1/3, 1/2, so on and so forth. So that kind of a memory is a functional working memory. It's essential. So when certain mathematical formulae are converted into words and poetry, it's easier for people to remember. It is with that intention this Bhuta Sankhya system was invented. I am sure my Bengali friends who are in the audience, they'll be able to identify that either they themselves or their father, mother, when they went to school, they had a similar system, which was taught to them in a poetic form. And I'm particularly sure, of course, in Tamil Nadu, it was kind of obscured, either by design or by default. But this exact same system is also available in Tamil. So, Ondre Deivam, Irande Kan, something like that, the poetry comes. So, how did they use it? So, this is the opening verse of the work by Bhaskara II called Siddhanta Shiromani, where he says, Rasa Guna Purna Mahi Sama Shakan Nripa Samage Bhavat Mamotpattihi Rasa Guna Varshena Maya Siddhanta Shiromani Rachitaha. I have color coded the words for you to say which one of them are representing numbers. For instance, here the first line, Rasa, Guna, Purna and Mahi. These are the 4 words. So Rasa, from the previous table, if you see, there are 6 rasas. And this requires that one is connected to our own culture. That's where the cultural literacy comes in. In today's time, the cultural literacy becomes an inevitable task for understanding the Bhuta Sankhya system. Why Shad Rasa? Why Rasa is 6? Because we normally associate Shat Rasa or 6 rasas. What are they? Madhura Amla Katu Tikta Lavana Kashaya. Madhura Amla Katu Tikta Lavana Kashaya. These are the 6 tastes. That's why Rasa gets a number 6. Similarly, Guna, we have Sattva, Rajas and Tamas Guna. So Guna is 3. So we have Rasa 6, Guna 3, Purna is 0, and Mahi is Earth. One of the synonyms of the word Mahi is Earth. So essentially this number, the word is, the string of word translates as 6301. Okay, but there is a convention in Indian mathematics that the numbers are read from right to left. Ankanam Vamato Gatihi. That is from Dakshina, you should start, and it goes towards the Vama side. So this number is, even though literal translation is 6301, but actual number is 1036. So what this author is saying, 1036 Sama Shaka Nripa Samaye Mama Bhavat Mamotpattihi. That I was born in this Shaka era. But that is which Shaka era? 1036 Shaka era, which translates to 1114 CE, current era. Okay, I was born at that time, and Rasaguna Varshena Maya Siddhanta Shiromani Rachitaha. And I composed this work called Siddhanta Shiromani when I was of the age of Rasaguna. Rasa again 6, Guna 3. So you revert it, become 36. And he completed this work when he was 36 years old. So similarly, this is a very famous example of expanding Bhuta Sankhya, expanding the pi in terms of Bhuta Sankhya, where the word written in blue is the numerator part. Asanna tamam paridhi sankyam uktavan. So this is the commentary, okay, written for the work by, I'm forgetting the original work, but Madhava writes a commentary. That's why Madhavacharyaha punaha ataha api asannatamam pariti sankyam uktavan. Very importantly, you should concentrate on the word asanna. Asanna actually means approximately. Asanna tamam. That is closest, most approximate. That's the meaning this word conveys. Because what is the word here? 1 second. The number the formula that is given is Vibudha Netra Gaja Ahi Utashana Triguna Veda Bhava Bha Varana Bahavaha Navanikharva Vite Vritivistare Paridhimanam Idam Jagadurbudhaha. So you just follow the Bhuta Sankhya table and see how the number emerges. Vibudha is 33, Netra 2, Gaja 8, Ahi 8, Utashana is again a paryaya for fire, which is 3. Then Triguna, which is 33. Veda, 4. Bha is again a paryaya for nakshatra. Nakshatrapati is 1, but nakshatra is 27. So Bha, which is a paryaya of nakshatra, gets the word 27. Varana is 8. Varana is again a paryaya for Gaja, which is elephant. And why Gaja or elephant is 8? It is a Pauranic, coming from the Puranas, that you have 8 elephants as the guarding deities of the 8 directions. Then Bahavaha. Bahu means 2 hands, hands there are 2. So you have 2 Bahu, 8 Varana, 27 Bha, 4 Veda, 33 Triguna, Hutashana is another 3, Ahi is 8, Gaja is 8, Netra is 2, Vibhuda is 33. Vibhuda is considered to be 33 deities in this again coming from the Purana. So this is the numerator. Nava, now the denominator part. Nava, Nikharva is a separate term which represents 10 to the power 11. And that's how today we understand it in terms of this numerator and the denominator, but which is coming out as the value of pi. But again, remember, the person who told this is still saying this is the closest approximation. Asanna tamam paridhi sankhya muktavan. Similarly here, this is from Aryabhata, where it comes as Vyase, Bha, Nanda, Agnihate, Vibhatte, Khabana Suryaihi, Paridhihi Susukshmaha. So numerator is Bha, Nanda, Agni. So Bha is again 27. Navananda, again coming from Purana. So I'll not get into those aspects, but the bottom line is, to understand Bhuta Sankhya, we need to know the Indian past, including Itihasa, Purana, the cultural ethos of the land we need to know. So Nanda is 9, Agni is 3. So Vyase is a perimeter. Bha Nanda Agni Hate, Vibhakte, if you divide it by Kha, is 0. That's why it comes at the end. Bana, Panchabana, Stubanaha. Again, the Kamadeva carries 5 arrows. So it is that reference. So Bana is 5. Suryaha, Dwadashadityaha. So it is 12. To divide this, you get this number. Again, another way of telling the expansion of pi. This had inspired even the foreigners who went up inventing similar Bhuta Sankhya system for English language. Okay. So this is by C.P. Brown, and those of you who are Telugu speaking people in my audience, you should know, or if you do not know, you should be surprised to know that C.P. Brown is considered the father of Telugu language. Why? Because he was the first person to create a dictionary between Telugu and English. He had analyzed Telugu language, and that is where he comes across the Bhuta Sankhya system, and he even comes up with a new Bhuta Sankhya system for English language. Okay. So where until the number 1 and 2, he sticks to the original concept of Bhuta Sankhya. Aries, Ram, Moon. So these are all representing only 1. Similarly, the Rishabha astrologically also is placed 2 in the Western thing also. It starts with Aries and then it goes to Rishabha. Just a second. But if you come from number 3, there's a pattern. He couldn't continue the astrological cycle, but he comes up with words which have 3 letters to represent number 3. Then 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth he goes. But this was just to impress upon the fact that the Bhuta Sankhya system was not just a dry academic exercise. It was very much functional. It was very much used in our texts. I gave you only few examples because these are relatable. Otherwise, if you have, those of you who are in Carnatic music, if you look at the 12 Melakartas, 72 Melakartas divided into 12 chakras, each chakra name is a Bhuta Sankhya. Right? So it starts with Indu Chakra, the Netra Chakra, Agni Chakra, Veda Chakra, Bana Chakra, Ritu Chakra, like that. If you go to Ayurveda text, you have again the reference to Bhuta Sankhya systems happening. But one word of caution here, that because the words like Rama or, by the way, Rama in the Bhuta Sankhya context would represent the number 3. Because our Itihasa informs us that there are 3 Ramas, Sri Rama, Parashurama and Balarama. But unbeknownst of these nuances, many foreigners have, or even many Indians also have wrongly translated the word Rama, attributing him to the Ayodhya Vasi Rama or a Sitapati Rama. Whereas that in that context, the word Rama actually means the number 3. Okay, so such kind of risky translations are possible without, if somebody approaches it without having any cultural moorings. So cultural moorings are the cornerstone, inevitable to fully appreciate and grasp the efficacy of Bhuta Sankhya system. And we as Indians, we will not have any trouble if we are not anathema to our own pasts, or if we are not antithetical, or if our own past is not anathema to us. The next is Aryabhatiya. Very quickly, I'll go through the system. This is a very unique system invented by Aryabhata and used only by Aryabhata. Nobody else used it. We used the system because of various reasons. But first, the scheme I will tell you very quickly. Very easy scheme. 1 to 25, you have the sequential ka to ma. Ka kha ga ghanga, cha cha ja jhanya, ta tha da da da, ta tha da dhana, pa pha ba bha ma. It forms a very beautiful 5x5 matrix. So 1 to 25 can be listed out this way. And they are called Varga Akshara. Varga, square, Akshara. That Akshara which belongs to a 5x5 square. The 5x5 is inherently understood. So it's a Varga Akshara. Yara Lava Shasha Saha are Avarga Akshara that do not belong to the square. And they have the number 30, 40 in multiples of 10, so on up till 100. Okay. Now here, the vowels decide the power of 10. That is, A and the A are both representing 10 to the power 0 and 10 to the power 1. See, all the Harsvaksharas, what I mean by Harsvakshara are the A, E, U, A. A is not a Harsvakshara, sorry. The first vowel that comes, the short vowel, what we call. They all represent the powers, even powers of 10. Sorry, odd powers of 10. And the long vowels would represent the even powers of 10. Which will be clear with an example, which I will show here. No, sorry. The even power and the odd power are varying only for the Vargakshara and the Avargakshara. Otherwise, A and the A are same. It's either 10 to the power 0 or 10 to the power 1, depending upon the consonant, if it is Varga or if it's an Avarga. Similarly, E and E, U and U, as per this. Somebody has a question in the chat box. Can you please unmute and say, or let me read it? Okay. Nobody has typed any question? Or did I hear something else? Never mind. So if you see here, it will be clearer if I take the example. The word is Kyugr. So there are 3 consonants, Kha, which is associated with Ya, and they both are associated with the U ki matra. So the first is Kha, which is a Vargakshara, and it is associated with U. So U, you see here, which is either 10 to the power 4 or 10 to the power 5. right? So 2, kha represents the number 2 and kha is a vargakshara. So it is 2 into 10 to the power 4, right? Ya is an avargakshara but associated with the vowel U. So this has to be 10 to the power 5. That's why 3. If you remember Ya in the previous table, I said 30. Why 30? It's actually 3. And this is 3 to 10 to the power 1. That's why this is 30. The odd power with the avargaksharas are all the odd powers. So Ya, how will you say Ya? It is, here it's very beautiful interplay of linguistics and logic, that the vowels in our Indian languages, not just Sanskrit, any Indian language you take, they are the ones that give life to the Vyanjana or the consonant. Without the help of vowel, we cannot pronounce the Vyanjana. That's why in Tamil, the word for vowel is called Uyireluthu, means that which imparts life to the consonant. In Sanskrit or in other languages, it is called Swara. Swayam Rajate iti Swaraha. That which can have an independent existence is called a Swara. But Vyanjana will not have an independent existence. So Ya is actually Ya with a halant plus A. And that Ya is a avarga, so is 10 to the power 1. That's why Ya becomes 30. But here it is Ya with a halant, U, that it is 10 to the power 5. 3 into 10 to the power 5. So that's why you have a 3 into 10 to the power 5 here. Then the next consonant is Gha, which is a vargakshara with a number 4, but it is associated with a R vowel, and that's why this is a 10 to the power 6. So the short word Kyugr is representing the number 43,20,000. But if you go to a Sanskrit scholar, the word Kyugr will not have any linguistic value. There is no, grammatically, you cannot deconstruct this word to make some sense. This is purely a numeric representation for the word 43,20,000. That's why this system did not attract others' attention, because Aryabhatta was dealing with astronomical numbers, for which he had to invent this kind of a system. Because if you take an example, in the top 2 rows, he has put the arsine value of various angles in the just 2 words. Makhi, phaki, makhi, bhaki, phaki, dhaki, naki, nyaki, etc. They will not have any linguistic value, I'm repeating. But they are in a meter, they are in a metrical form, representing all the arsine values differing by 3 degrees 45 minutes. Okay, that was the utility of this system. The last is Katapayadi system, which is very easy. Similar process of Ka to Ma, but with a slight difference that you have Ka to Jha 1 to 9, and this Ya takes the value 0. Similarly, Ta to Dha 1 to 9, and the consonant Na takes the value 0, and Pa to Ma becomes 1 to 5. So Vargakshara ends here. Then Yaralava, again you start from 1. This Ksha is a mistake, it is not 0. Ksha should be actually the number 6. Please avoid this Ksha under 0. So this is just, this one you need to just remember. The definition is given in Sanskrit with the following line, that Nanyavachascha Shunyani Sankhya Katapayadayaha Mishretu Pantyahal Sankhya Nachachintyo Halaswaraha. I'll not bother to explain, but that translates to the scheme. One very important feature of Katapayadi is the vowels do not play any role unless a word begins with a vowel. Right? If a word begins with a vowel, like say the word Amara, begins. So there you need to give the value 0 to it. Right? Nacha Nanyava Chashcha Shunyani. So here ach is a pratyahara. Those of you who are from Sanskrit background will know what a pratyahara is. That ach is a pratyahara which represents all the vowels. So nanyavachascha shunyani, which means the na and the nya and the vowel will all take the value 0. Sankhya katapayadayaha. Vishretu pantihal sankhya, when there you have come across a samyukta akshara. That is in the word called mukti. There is a half ka before T. So ignore that half ka. You have to take only T. Right? So muti and mukti will both constitute the same number. Right? So don't give value to that consonant which is not associated with a vowel. And vowel doesn't matter anywhere. It has no numeric value except when the word begins with a vowel. I hope that very simple logic is clear. This is used in several astronomical works, mathematical works. Say, for instance, you have Vidwan. So Vidwan, it appears as though it has got one full consonant and 3 half consonants, right? So here V or Va, if you look from the previous table, Yara Lava, Va is 4. Similarly, you have the next one is half the associated with a Va, to which the vowel Aki Matra is associated. So you should ignore the and take again Va. So Va is anyway 4, whether it is V or Va doesn't matter. So it is 4 and 4, and Na is not independent. Had it been independent, you would have taken the value 0. But this is not independent, which is with a halanta. So you should ignore it. So the word Vidwan would essentially mean the number 0. No, sorry, the number 44. Similarly, if you take this word Kavisha Nichayaha, so Ka is 1, Va is 4, Sha is 5, Na is 0, Cha is 6, Ya is 1. You read the number same again from right to left. So Ya is 1, Cha is 6, Na is 0, Sha is 5, Va is 4, Ka is 1. Right? So you got this. Again, if you have really understood this, and if you are not sleeping, if you are still with me, what I will do, I would like to give you a task now and make you write the Katapayadi number corresponding to your name. You can type the thing in your chat box. I see several names in my Gmail, Google Meet video. So I invite you to spend few minutes in understanding this. Like you have Sri Niketa, you have Preeti, you have Geetika, Satya Prakasha, Ashish, Abigail. Okay, so give an attempt to write the number corresponding to your name. Maybe what I can also do is I can start with one example. If I work it out, then it will be better. So I hope all of you are able to see the paint window. Diksha Pandeyji, it is not at all tough. It's just that you are unfamiliar with it, right? So I will take your own name. What's your name? It is Diksha Pandey. Are you able to see I hope you're able to see my paint window.
Yes, sir.
So I will first write it in Devanagari script and then I will put it in English script, Roman script.
Okay, sir.
So this is kindly bear with my poor handwriting. So,
Yes, sir.
so this is Diksha, right?
Yes.
So the word number corresponding to da is what? We know ka, kha, ga, gha, nga, cha, cha, ja, jha, ya. Da doesn't come there. So ta, tha, da, dha, na, ta, tha, da, dha. So da is 8. Ksha, actually see, ksha is made by half ka and this sha. These two together makes it ksha. Right? So half ka is of no use because it is not associated with any vowel. The only word which is letter which is associated with vowel is sha, which is a pet kata sha or a shatkona sha, whose number is ya, ra, la, va, sha, sha. It is 6.
Yes.
So the number corresponding to Diksha is 68. Because you should read the number from right to left.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So likewise, I would now like others to, I'll give you 2 minutes time. Please, you can give it a try. I'm getting infinite mirror, so I'm stopping to present. Hassan Uz Zaman. Okay, what do you do for Muhammad Sahab? If you can write your name in, say, in Devanagari script. I don't read Urdu, otherwise I would have asked you to type it in Urdu. But I do not type it in. I do not know to read Urdu. But Muhammad Sahab, if you can type and help me by typing your name in Devanagari, it will be better. Or if you can just pronounce your name.
It's
I can do one thing.
Hassanuzaman. It's Hassanuzaman.
Can you Hassanuz Zaman. Okay, so
Yes.
let us work out. Let us work out that. Is my screen still visible?
No, sir.
No. Okay. I hope it is visible now.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So it is Mohammed Sahab, did I write the name correctly as per your pronunciation?
Yes, it is correct.
In Hindi, normally how you write is, you may be habitual of writing it without this halant.
No, I never write in Hindi. I write in Bengali and English.
You write it in Bengali.
Yes, sir.
তাহলে এটা আপনি, where is it? এখানে মাটা, where, what happened?
It's correct. I can read Hindi.
Fine. What I was trying to drive home is this: in Bengali also you will be writing it fully. You will not put a half da.
Yes, in Bengali it will be a ha, sa, nu, ja, man.
Okay. That man, that ha, the end na, you will not put a half na. It will be a full na.
It is full now. Yes.
But in Sanskrit, when you write it, it has to be with the halant only.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is the difference that I was trying to say. So this is what happened. Okay. So this is your name. So ma will be papa, baba, ma 5. Ha will be ya, ra, la, va, sha, sha, sa, ha 8. Half ma is ignore. One more ma is 5. Sorry. And this da with a halant will ignore it. Similarly, ha is 8. Ya, ra, la, va, sha, sha, sa. Sa is 7. Na is 0. So there is no letter called za in Sanskrit. So I will take it as ja. So it will be ka, kha, ga, gha, nga, cha, cha, ja. Ja is 8. And again, ma is 5. So your name for Muhammad is 585. And for Hassan Zaman is 5807. 8. Is it clear?
Yes, it is.
Good.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other names? Sri Niketa Kumara Mishra. Sri Niketa. So Shri is Ya, Ra. Ra, 0, Ka, 1. Ta, 6. Correct. But you should write the number from right to left. So your number corresponding to your name is 6102. Before
Okay,
that,
sir. Thank you.
before that, Satya Prakash has also worked out. So let me go to that. Satya Prakash Pati G. This ta is not a full ta. It is a half ta. Right? So you should ignore that half ta. You should only take a ya. So your number corresponding to your name is 15. 1 5. Sa is 5, ya is 1. Read it from right to left, it is 15. Similarly, Kritika, right? Kritika Ben. So Ka, Ra. You have to take Ra, which is 2. But you have taken K. Don't go by how it is written in English, in the Roman script. That will misguide you. Let me work out this Kritika. Kritika, actually, as per Sanskrit, should be written this way. Right? So here Kritika, this is Kr. So you should take the vowel sound here, which is a Ra. So this is number 2. The Ta is actually 6 and Ka is 1. So this number corresponds to 162. But what you have done is, you have taken, in the Kr, you have taken the Ka as 1. That is a mistake that you have made. Okay. So I hope all of you got the logic. I will not prolong here because I have very limited time. So you can work it out yourselves. Last one maybe I'll work out because Rashmi Kalaji is either lazy or she is not still fully understood. So let me work it out for her. So Rashmi. Okay. So Ra is 2. This is half Sha, which you can omit, and Ma is 5. So this name corresponds to 52. Okay. But I must tell you one thing, that this is not numerology. What you normally come across newspaper or in some TV shows, this is not numerology at all. They have a different way to arrive at a number of, which is for your name. This is not that. This is purely representing number with words. That's all this is all about. Don't confuse this with that and take it as an example. I'll tell you, and the reason to introduce you is, you take up any engineering text, okay, from ancient India, you take any astronomical text, you will find all these number systems profusely used. And there are examples of mistranslations where people have not understood this numbering code and they have ended up mistranslating and misguiding generations of students. So at least through this workshop, I make it a point to sensitize you towards this kind of a number system and make you aware that our ancestors had used it. Okay. So with that, I will now I will skip this whole Chandas part because of want of time. Otherwise, this Chandas is also a very beautiful link between mathematics and language. Right? In the mathematics, you ask a question, how to easily compute 2 to the power n. Pingala, who is author of Chanda Shastra, asks a similar question. right? And he offers a question, offers an answer also. But I'll skip all these things. So, and those of you from computer background will know that the convergence rate using different algorithms matter a lot. So we can look at all those things. Very famously, the Pascal's triangle that also is there in the Chanda Shastra. Again, it's very mathematical question, but I'll not bother you with all these detail. Those of you interested can interact with me privately to get to know about these kind of elements. I'll switch gears very quickly now to metallurgy in chemistry, my core area. This is, again, I will read the line and I will try help you by translating it also. Tataha sulbakakunyuttarapasarita chatussimanta aditi shodasha varnakaha. It talks about making gold alloys so that you get gold appearing in 16 different colors. So it talks about alloying gold. Today also when you go to buy gold in the market, there are two terms associated with the purity of gold. One is carat or one is percentage. And normally in India, where the highest purity of gold is used for ornament is 22 carat. I mean, I have been in Europe, they start with only 18 carat. 22 carat is a different way of mentioning the purity of gold. In our country, in India, you have one more term called 916. If you see that the gold ornament has got 916 engraved, which means it is 91.6% gold in it. That corresponds to 22 carat. Now, what is about the remaining 8.4%? They are typically silver or copper. That's how alloying was done. Today, we understand the process of alloying through what I'm showing here as a phase diagram. Okay. I am not at all claiming that back then our ancestors had invented phase diagram. No, absolutely no. They had not invented phase diagram. But they knew how to alloy copper and gold to come out with even 16 different colors of gold. Now, what I want you to guess is what text I am talking about. And roughly how old is this text? I have very less time now. I want you to guess very quickly. And no harm if you have a wrong guess. I'm definitely not going to be judgmental. This is not about checking your general knowledge. This is about highlighting how we have been deprived of our own ancient knowledge. Because I'm aware you know the person who wrote this text, you know this text. 100% I'm guaranteed. Everybody in my audience will know this text and its author. But the fact that this is one of the content of the text, perhaps you might not know. But very quickly, I want at least one guess.
Brihat Samhita, sir.
Very brilliant guess, but wrong. I'll tell you, this is even older than Brihat Samhita. One more guess, please. I'm very short of time, falling short of time.
Is it from Valmiki Ramayana, sir?
Oh, you've gone way back. Sorry. But thanks for two brilliant guesses. This is from Arthashastra by Kautilya. Now you may wonder why Arthashastra talks about metallurgy. Of course he has to talk. He is writing a text of how a welfare state has to be maintained, where gold is a vital resource. Now in his kingdom, if gold is being made of 16 varieties, which means you have, in our language, you have 10 karat gold also, you have 16 karat gold also, you have 18 karat gold also, and you have 22 karat gold also. What if somebody is selling 16 karat gold in the cost of 22 karat gold? That means he's doing fraud. So Kautilya has devised methods to make 16 varieties of gold, and he has also devised methods to test. If you go to buy a ornament from a goldsmith, as a customer, you should not get cheated, because that is adharma. So how will you detect it? It's not that people were not doing everything was hunky-dory. People were cheating then also. Kautilya knew about it. That's why he prescribes method to detect how these fraudulent activities can be detected. By saying what? Suvarnam purvam nikashya, paschad varnikam nikashayet, savaragalekhar nimnonnate deshe nikashitam, parimriditam, parilidham, nakhantaratva, gauri kedava churnitam upadhyam vidyat. The Sanskrit, I'm not going to translate to you. But if I show you a picture, what it translates to, you all will identify what I read it out. This is about rubbing gold on the touchstone and adding something to it and looking at the reaction, thereby coming to a conclusion, which is followed even to this day, right from Arthashastra period. Okay, so anyway, moving fast forward, there are solid state reactions being described in the Arthashastra. Because solid state reactions are highly non-trivial even to this day. You can have reaction in liquid state, in gas state is difficult. The most difficult is in the solid state. But there is a description of a solid state reaction in Arthashastra. About iron technology, you all are familiar with the Delhi iron pillar, the rustless wonder of our country. First ever time we come across the reference to iron. Of course, the linguistics scholarship are still debating whether the word ISE, the second line, the third word, ISE is to be understood as a generic terminology for metals or specifically for iron. The verdict is split. There are equal number of proponents for both the conjectures. But I subscribe to the iron interpretation part of it. Very first time we come across in Rigveda. Charitram hi veriva chedi parnamaja khelasya paritakyayam sadyo jangham ayasi vishpanayi dhane hite sartave pratyadhattam. He talks about Khela, the character Khela. No, in the fight called Khela, the character is Vishpala. Again, linguist scholars are split whether Vishpala was the name of a lady or a man or a horse. Whoever be that, Vishpala lost the leg, okay, in the battle of Khela. So, what happens? Sadhyaha gives prosthetic Jangham Ayasim. Ayasi Jangha. That is a prosthetic made of metal or iron was given to Vishpala. Okay, that's a reference we get from Rigveda. Now I will not get into the dating of Rigveda because that is very controversial. But here we find one reference as back as then, which means which you should include, you should understand if a prosthetic has to be made, how the metal has to be forged, casted, smelted, purified, ore has to be identified, fortified, enriched, then molded. Okay, so all those processes are inherent once a prosthetic is made. Again, Kautilya mentions about all these things. I will not bother. Now, the archaeological artifacts that were found in different geographies that I have marked with an arrow here, they were remarkably uniformly made. The iron composition did not vary much. Provided, even if it is made in northern part or in Tirunelveli or in Dwarka or say even in Puri. This can only be possible if there was a pan-Indic knowledge of processing iron. Okay? Or if there was a central place where iron was made and it was dispatched, which is very unlikely. Which goes on to show how the knowledge transfer also happened back then to have such a pan-Indic approach towards technology. Anyway, iron pillar, I will not tell my time. The Woods steel was also very, very well known. It's called a Damascus sword. Damascus is a place in Syria, not anybody's name. Damascus is a place where the Indians were taken as slave who had the knowledge of making what is called the Woods steel. Woods, W-O-O-T-Z, is again not a name of any person or any object. I am proud to say this is coming from my mother tongue, that is Tamil, which is Urukku. From Urukku, it gets into Telugu and Kannada as Ukku, and it is anglicized version of Ukku is Woods. The gutturals are difficult for English than the dentals. So wood, Ukku involves a guttural, it becomes Woods, which becomes a dental. So this glory about the Damascus sword, I mean, there are tons of literature available that how it was able to cut several heads in a war and still it did not lose its sharpness. Okay. Talking of making steel, this is very enigmatic picture, I would say. It's not a photograph, it's a author's or illustrator's creative imagination by reading a text, which involves interaction between Alexander, shown in yellow dress, and the King Puru, shown in the black dress, who is gifting a sword made out of this wood steel to Alexander. And what I want you to observe very carefully is the servant who's standing behind King Puru with a bowed head and a hand which looks like carrying a golden chest, a golden box. And it is going to get opened. If you carefully see his hand, the placing of his hand, he's going to open the lid, or he has just opened the lid and he has closed it. That means something precious is there inside that gold box. What was it? It was again a steel brick. So imagine a steel brick being gifted to an international delegate who has, of course, come for fighting, kept in a gold box. Compared to the times of today, where even by a small nose ring or an ear ring or a finger ring, we immediately go to the bank and keep it in an iron locker. So back where those days where steel brick was gifted in a gold box. So you can imagine from where we have come to where. Copper, yet another marvel. Those of you who have the habit of wearing copper, you will realize that the copper also loses its color, becomes green in very short span of time. But here is one 8 feet colossal standing Buddha excavated from a place called Sultanganj in Bihar by Alexander Cunningham in the middle of 19th century. And it has not rusted. It is from 5th century. And currently it is being safely guarded in Birmingham Museum, the United Kingdom. It's unfortunate that we have lost our treasures to them. The place names that I've listed out here are spanning most of the geographies of our country where copper the copper metallurgy was at its peak in all these places. So this goes on to show that copper was something very deftly handled by our ancestors. Despite the fact that our copper deposits are not widely spread. We have very few copper in the Rajasthan mines and very few in the southern parts. Despite that fact, copper was kind of widely being processed and used. Of course, brass, right from the Vedic times, we have references to brass. And brass is nothing but a mixture of copper and zinc. And I will not get into the brass metallurgy because that will again take away some time. I will skip. But what I wanted to ponder upon is this question, which was raised by Vanda Morton. And she settled this question also through this good publication, which is quite recent. Her quest was, who first made brass intentionally? Which means there are two types of brass. One is called intentional brass, one is called accidental brass. What is accidental brass? Wherever you have copper ore, there are other ores also present. Zinc is also one such ore which may be present besides copper. So when you smelt copper, accidentally the zinc also gets smelted and they accidentally gets mixed. That's called accidental brass. But today metallurgy is advanced enough to say that in such accidental brass, you cannot have zinc more than 15%. But there are brass artifacts found excavated in our country where the zinc percentage in the brass was more than 30%. So one thing is clear, it is impossible to make such brass using accidental process. It has to be intentional brass. And what is intentional brass? You have pure copper, you have pure zinc, and then you mix them in whatever desired proportion you want. That is intentional brass. And this again means we need to have pure copper and we need to have pure zinc. That brings me to zinc metallurgy. Because zinc, we can very proudly say our country has been the first and perhaps the only country in the ancient world to have not only purified zinc, pure zinc, but also have exported it in tons and tons of quantity. It is through the indigenous invention called this kind of a furnace. It needs a closed furnace. In the text, it is called the Vrintaka Mosha, where you have an empty pot beneath the ground, and you have a pot filled with the zinc ore and carbonaceous material, because you need carbon as per this reaction. If you see, the zinc carbonate gets first reduced and carbon dioxide is released. Then you have zinc oxide. The zinc oxide needs to be carbonized so that this carbon combines with oxygen and gets away as carbon monoxide, and then you have pure zinc. So you need carbon material that is stuffed in the top pot, and then you have this zinc, pure zinc settled at the bottom. So this is what a pronouncement by P.T. Craddock, who says the Jawar mines near Rajasthan have many tens of thousands of tons of zinc. Now they are the earliest dated zinc mines in the world, earliest known center for zinc production. It's not that the metal legacy is discontinued. We had a sporadic engagement with the metal. It is still continuing to this day in form of various artifacts, but it's just that these artisans are kind of sidelined, saying they are not white-collar educated artisans. They are considered as craftsmen. Least realizing the kind of technological skills that is required to produce such craft and how they have inherited this from their ancestors. And it is really unfortunate that in the colonial period, some of them were even labeled as tribals, and they were marginalized even away from the society. So much so that even today, if you go to Chhattisgarh or if you go to Bengal, Odisha, if you look at the Dokra works are primarily made of iron. They are made by tribals. And today, not the science ministry, but the tribal welfare ministry is behind all of them. And they are not considered as a part of the civilized society. It's very unfortunate, which is a development or a misdevelopment that has happened in the last 200 years. Otherwise, you have inscription, you have texts where it is said that for a Grama Panchayat system, like Gram Panchayat like system in the ancient world, in the ancient India, one of the members had to be a goldsmith, one of the members had to be a ironsmith, a metalsmith in general. There had to be a carpenter. Evidences of that you can see in the Vedic chant called Rudram, which is a part of, and specifically Namakam, Karmarebhyaha. There is a reference to metalsmith. Okay, so there are Charmarebhya, people who work with leather, Karmakara. The word for carpentry is Takshaka. Takshaka, today those of you who understand Malayalam, the word for carpentry in Malayalam is Tachan. That is clearly coming from the Sanskrit word Takshaka. Right, so which we find even as one of the descriptions of Shiva, or to say that they were having respectable positions. What happened in the last intervening years is very unfortunate. Anyway, I will skip all these things. There are several apparatus that I mentioned. One particular thing which I want to draw your attention to, this is one of the professors in IIT Kanpur, A.K. Vishwas, he's retired of course. He had the following to say. You look at three different ores of copper, Makshika, Vimala and Sasyaka. Okay, the first two are pyrites. The third one is copper sulfate. He says, A.K. Vishwas says that our ancients had made the wonderful observation that all the three red products seemed to be identical after processing, that is tamra or copper. That is, after you process Vimala, Shashika and Makshika, which look very different, after processing, they all look identical. Red, which is tamra. What he says is most important now, that this observation made centuries before the discovery of elements and Daltonian chemistry cannot be belittled. So this is like elements that we talk about. And the apparatus that you have are described in various texts. This is one of the sublimation apparatus, a distillation apparatus, one more kind of apparatus which is still in vogue. Okay, you have descriptions of furnaces, various furnaces. Perhaps the last question to those who are from background of chemistry or those who go to chemistry. I mean, I will read it for you, but I would like you to guess what is being talked about. You don't have to worry about literally translating it, but some sense you get with your background. Each one of you know your mother tongue at least. So if you know the mother tongue, that is sufficient enough for you to make a guess what is being talked about here. Avartamane kanake pita tare sita prabha shulve neela nibha tikshne krishnavarna sureshwari ange jwala kapotabha nage malin dhumaka ityadi, so on and so forth. Help me very quickly by guessing what the author on what on earth the author is trying to convey. You don't have to translate. Just give me just the bits and pieces of what you're able to gather. Please, I'm running short of time. I want to drive home a point. That's why I'm making you guess rather than just rushing through what I want to say in this. I request you, please. Even if you are wrong, doesn't matter. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Would you like to make a guess?
They have given different colors.
Very good. You are 50% right. And remaining 50% they have given, one is colors. Other 50% corresponds to metals. Kanaka. Those of you know Hindi, it is
Kanak-
Kanak Kanakte Sauguni. Right? In Tamil also you have the word name Kanaka. Kanaka means gold. So Avartamane, it is to introduce. Once you introduce gold, you get the yellow color, which is where to introduce? To the flame. Okay. This is the first ever documentation of flame test that we do in chemistry in the entire world. And myself as a PhD in chemistry, I feel so ashamed that I got to know this after finishing PhD, after getting a job, and after when I was seriously researching about it. The point that I'm trying to drive home here is, see how our education system has kept us away from our own heritage of knowledge. I'm not saying that once I know this, I'll be able to build up a rocket or it's the rocket science. No, my claim is not that. At least I will be inspired. I'll get a wow factor to say, okay, our ancestors had done so much advanced things. Right? So this is what, if you Shulve is also a very interesting word. Shulva is a word for copper. And it says if you introduce copper, it gets a blue color to the flame. And by Shulva, you have another word called Shulvari. Shulvasya arihi iti Shulvari. And can you etymologically connect an English word to the word Shulvari? It is actually sulfur. The English word that we use sulfur today comes from the Sanskrit word Shulvari. And why Shulvasya arihi, enemy of copper, is sulfur? Because back then, the basic test of reactivity was done through sulfur. And copper was very highly reactive to, copper is highly reactive to sulfur. That's why sulfur is called the enemy of copper. Okay. So such things are so interestingly intertwined that through such workshops, at least we can get a glimpse of what was there in the past. Okay. They had even arranged metals in the reactivity order. Suvarnam, Rajatam, Tamram, Tikshnam, Bangam, Bhujangamam, Lohantu, Shad Vidham, Tat Cha, Yatha Purvam, Tat Akshayam. At least you realize the word Akshaya, Nakshaya iti Akshaya. That which does not disintegrate, that which does not decay. Which will not decay? Yatha Purvam. That Suvarna onwards, the decay thing starts. Right? So Suvarna is Akshaya. But Rajata is slightly less Akshaya. The lesser is Tamra. Like that, you have to understand this shloka. I will add certain things. I mean, this is normally, I like to end with this very beautiful way to say that sulfur is highly reactive. Today, I mean, NEP also talks about making the textbook written in such a way that it arouses interest in the students. In a chemistry, the chemical information that has to be written is sulfur is highly reactive. But how does the Granthakara of Rasarnava writes it? Naso asti loham atango yanna ganthaka kesari nihanyat gandhamatrena yadva makshika kesari. Meaning, there is no elephantine metal that cannot be subdued by a sulfur-like lion. Okay, but here I am showing a picture of elephant subduing the lion. That you need to know our, again, Puranic stories or our Indian ethos. Especially if you travel to the East Coast, all the temples in temple architecture in Odisha, if you see, you will have this Gajasimha Mudra. This is called the Gajasimha Mudra. That is, lion will be always dominating the, elephant will be always dominating the lion. But yet we call lion as the king of the jungle. Why? Because the lion can kill an elephant only if it attacks the elephant from the backside. Right? That's why here if it says there is no metal like an elephant which cannot be killed by a lion like sulfur. So I'll skip all these things. So with just one thing I will conclude. This is the GDP for the last 2000 years. You carefully look at the orange color, how it has been steadily declining. We were the top GDP contributors until at least 1700, until the Britishers came at least. Or there has been a steady decline. What would have made us be the top GDP contributors? It's definitely our knowledge in chemistry, material science, and metallurgy. Right? So this is not by my fiction of imagination. This is by Angus Maddison, who was tasked by World Bank to tabulate or to analyze the world GDP for the last 2000 years. I mean, I will skip all these things. I will thank you all for your patient listening. And I would like to, because this is the 150th year of Aurobindo that we have just celebrated. And the words are still relevant. Break the mouths of the past, but keep safe its gains and spirits, or else we will have no future. So I took a lot of your time than I promised. I apologize for that. And I am having time now. If you are still having your patience, you can ask any question that you may want to have. And if you have any comment or suggestion, also they are welcome. As I said, this is a bird's eye view that I tried to give, and particularly from field of maths and chemistry and metallurgy. And I invite your questions or comments or criticism or whatever you want to suggest.
Sir, you have done what you call converted from Hindi to or Devanagari to numbers. That exercises can we get anywhere, sir?
What I can do that Dr. Mishra also asked, it is there in my PPT very briefly. I can share the PPT with all of you.
Thank you,
or
sir.
You can go to the NPTEL course by MD Srinivas Ramasubramaniam. You can have it there. I have published 2 papers along with Venkateshwar Pai on them. You can search it in Google, you will be able to get, but I can also share my PowerPoint with everybody. Not a problem.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. If you have nothing to share, then we can call it a day. The link I'll have to search. So what I request, Dr. Mishra ji, please just type my name and just type Katapayadi or automation. You will get a current science paper. So you can have a look at that. There we have given the, or maybe I can search it and give the link here. Just to give me a minute. In the meantime, if anybody else has, आप किसी भी भाषा में पूछ सकते हो. मैं हिंदी में, तमिल, तेलुगु, मलयालम or Bengali. Language should not be a barrier. Okay. So this is a ResearchGate link. I think you can go to the original link from this ResearchGate link that I'm getting. So you may use this link also. So if there are no further questions or comments or criticism, I would like to take your leave.
Sir, these type of classes could be conducted for at least 1 week to understand better.
I agree with you, but everything is having its own time limits. So that's why I said this is just a very brief introduction. And if those of you interested, we can plan it out separately for longer expositions. I agree. Okay, I can share my email also in the chat box. So you can feel free if you have any question or if you have any suggestion to make.
Sir, just a short query.
Yeah.
So I heard until the British rule, we don't know how to extract metal from the ore. So that's why.
Obviously. If I'm not wrong, Dr. Pati, you are from Odisha.
Yes, yes.
You
Yes,
go
sir.
to Konark temple.
Yeah.
You have iron beams lying out for the last 120 years.
There are many things like this, but we failed the aeroplane, the Talpate Brothers.
Vimana Shastra is one such field where I would very frankly say my readings are not complete. I am not. That's why in my whole presentation, I did not even utter a single word for Vimana Shastra.
The reason behind that is we are not making metals at that time.
No, that is not a reason. I am not comfortable to speak anything on Vimana Shastra.
So this thing is also shown in the movie Hawai Jade.
That's okay. I mean, I know there are a lot of such literature coming out, but as a student of this kind of a subject, I'm not qualified and I have absolutely no confidence to speak anything about Vimana Shastra because I have more questions than any answers in that field. But coming to your other comment that before Britishers we never knew how to extract metal is absolutely not correct. Okay. Recently, I have written a book chapter along with Professor Desi Raju about zinc. Then about iron metallurgy, about copper, which I wanted to show you through my presentation also today, was that we were extracting metal from a very early age. One more example I can give you. It is from Krishna Yajurveda in the portion called Chamaka Prashna. I think it is the 5th one or the 6th one, where the names of 6 metals are mentioned. Hiranyam chame, Yashchame, Sisam chame, Trapushchame, Shyamam chame, Loham chame. There are explicit mention of gold, silver, copper, iron, tin. Gold, silver, copper, iron, tin, and one more I'm missing. What is that? Gold, silver, copper, iron. Hiranyam chame, Ayashchame. Hiranyam chame, Ayashchame, Sisam, lead. The 6 metals are mentioned right from Krishna Yajurveda. How can anybody say that we did not know the art of extracting metals? We were importing or buying direct metals from outside or what?
Yeah. That time the British come to the Talpade brothers laboratory and destroyed everything. And they say that how will you make? I will see. You don't know how to make the metal. How you will make the aeroplane? We will see like this thing.
That is, I have read that instance about Talpade brothers confrontation, but I'm deliberately not discussing anything because I have several my own questions. My research is not even 5% matured in that direction. But I am very much aware of the discussion that you are talking about.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. So I've typed my email address in this chat box. Those of you interested can feel free to write to me. Then I can send the PowerPoint collectively in one common email to everybody. Other than that, if you want to express any other comment or criticism, or if you want to suggest me how we can present it in a better way, you feel free to write to me. So with that, I once again thank all the participants and good evening. Namaste. Goodbye.